very much, Emma. You really surprised me, I must say. And what you surprised me with most, I've given poor Emma 2 topics that she said. And I was expecting her to deliver one topic after the other. And I was really amazed when you delivered them both together. It was really fantastic, I thought. Would you guys agree with me? Yes. Thank you for being our star of the night and our main attraction of this event. I'm sure thanks to you and the topic we had so many people here tonight. So thank you very much. It's just something welcome. Okay, and as you said on the slides, we decided to be agile all together, and we decided to change our agenda completely 3 days before the event. And we managed to do that thanks to Steve today, who is here, and he's going to tell us about the most important topic for all of us, I think. So, welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having the opportunity. One of the things that I really like to do is to help people, and in today's climate, I think there's a lot of assistance required for people who are seeking jobs, or people are now a little bit shy to actually put up their hands to say, I want out of my current job at the moment because I don't know what's going to be on today. So can I just ask a question? Put up your hands if you're either seeking a new job or you're out of work looking for work at the moment. Okay. That's quite a few. Let me just give you a little bit of background about myself. I have an IT background. I started in IT as a computer programmer, got up to a project manager, BA, tester, everything in between for 14 years, and then I fell into recruitment. And I've been doing that for the last 20 odd years. So I relate very well to the IT world. I enjoy it. I enjoy meeting with a lot of the IT people, anyone from a help desk to a CIO and everything in between. So I'm very passionate about the industry. I haven't got any slides, and I haven't got anything to put up. I'm just speaking predominantly from the heart. So what I want to do is go through what you people probably don't see the recruiters do. The most traditional way of filling a job is getting a job order. So a lot of you PMs out there have gone to hire people, you put up your hand and you go to a recruiter, you advertise on Seek or whatever you do, and you say, go find us a particular person. So how do we go about that? We obviously go to our database, we advertise, we network to find the people, we talk to them, then we have to go and qualify the people. And one of the problems that we're having these days in qualifying the people, or if we put on an ad on Seek, is we're bombarded by people, and you all know that. The world has changed considerably, and I think that in particular what Emma said with the change, this is one industry where it's changed enormously, enormously over the last 6 to 12 months in particular. When I started at Roche, by the way, who's heard of Roche, the Roche Group? Right, excellent. If you've heard, that's good to hear. We're a boutique company. We've been around since 1989, and I've been there for 20 years and 20 days today. So I've been there for a long, long time. Predominantly, we were doing headhunting. Apart from contracting, when we placed permanent people, it was purely headhunting. So we would offer an opportunity for someone who's happy, successful, not necessarily looking for another job, and then we would understand what their motivation is for perhaps changing jobs, getting them to the table for them to have a choice. Today, as you all know, it's a little bit different from just having a choice in that sense. So we've had to modify our ways of working. And what we do, once we've got a job order, we look and qualify the people. And what we're experiencing today is that the resumes that we're getting from people are very different in terms of the hiring managers than they have been in the past. And this is one of the areas that we try to help the people. There's no rule of how to write a resume. I guarantee every person in this room would write a resume differently. But one of the things that is important is that you've got to understand a hiring manager will probably have not 2 or 3 resumes on their desk today, but dozens. And so what we have to do is see how we can differentiate ourselves from our competitors. So I usually go through basically 3 parts of the resume. The first part is your personal particulars, where you've got name, address, phone numbers. I actually like to put in interests and hobbies because that's often a very good icebreaker at an interview. The second one is the education, technical skills, courses that you've been on, and this is where a lot of people forget about the courses, that even if you've gone on a 2-day project management course, 5-day agile course, they tend to forget about it. They'll put it on as a technical skill, but I think it's important that they actually show they've got a certification or training on it. And then you go through your work history. Now with the work history, this is the area where I really like to get stuck into some people, because they put down a duty, let's call it a system tester, and they put on, I develop test plans, UAT testing, I do this, that and the other. And then you have a look, another 5 resumes, and the responsibilities and the duties are identical, which is fair enough. However, what you need to do today is to be able to distinguish yourself from the rest of the field. If you can make that much of a difference on your resume to get that interview from the others, it could be the difference between securing a role or missing out. So how do we do that? We do that through achievements and accomplishments. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of a programmer. You get a guy who's writing a payroll system at Telstra, another guy who might be writing a payroll system at the Diesel Group, which is the company that Roche belongs to, which has got 20 people. Telstra, let's call it 20,000, Diesel, 20. Both of these guys are going for a job at ANZ, where there might be, again, I'm making up numbers, people know it, just ignore it, say 10,000 people. The duties and responsibilities of the two would be identical. They've done the superannuation and the annual leave and all the rest of it, and they've designed and developed a very successful system with both of these companies. Now, who is going to be more likely to get the job at ANZ? If you now start talking about your achievements, right? I have, person A has achieved by successfully doing a payroll system for a multinational such as Telstra, versus someone who's done it for a small company, a small business. So obviously the person, if they can put down their achievements to describe that, the person at the Telstra would have a much better chance of getting the role because they've gone through designing it. Do you all agree with that? Right? So when you write down your duties and your responsibilities, you can see that it's all going to be the same, and that's where you really need to distinguish yourselves. You get a document. To me, a resume is like being invited to a wedding. You're not going to go to the wedding unless you get an invitation. And a resume is exactly the same thing. You're not going to get an interview unless you've got a powerful resume. In particular, when you're competing against so many other people in the marketplace today. So you've got to look at your resume. Pretend you are the hiring manager looking at that resume with somebody else's name on it. Is it compelling enough to invite that person in for an interview? If it's not, go back and reword it, rewrite it. You want to get that exciting. You want some kind of excitement. The other way we place people just on that is through marketing the person. So I will interview the people, find out their hot buttons and find out what has been really special and unique about that person. If I can find that out, I will go to a hiring manager and pick up the phone and say, I have just met John Smith and here are his achievements. I have 20 seconds to do that, because beyond 20 seconds, the listening and attention span goes out the window. Plus the fact you don't know what's going on the other end of the phone, he's probably on WhatsApp or Facebook or something like that. You've really only got a small window of opportunity to market that person. So it's really important that each individual can define themselves why they are unique and why they should be put forward for a role. One of the things that I really like to do, and Shanti knows all about this one, is the interview preparation. I think that no matter what level you're at, whether you're a graduate or a CIO, I like to do an interview preparation which actually puts you that little bit further. It's not new information. It's basically taking the information from your subconscious mind, putting it into your conscious mind, so you're primed for an interview. Why do I do it? Because it seems to work. And remember, recruiter's a sales guy, so it's got to work. Okay? And with that preparation, it basically goes on body language. It's not about me being able to help you on the technical side of it, but basically how you present. Things like firm handshake, sitting up tall, showing confidence within yourself. Because once again, every little thing is going to make a significant difference between you securing the role or the next person getting it. Okay, the biggest challenge I think people have today is the lack of jobs versus the large number of candidates going for work. In particular, for people who have come from overseas where the resumes are different, the interviews are a little bit different, and that's where people need to actually click onto a recruiter. And I believe that, I've always used this theory, I've said this 1,000 times, and I'm going to say it again today. You've probably got your own doctor, you've probably got your own dentist. My theory, there is no reason why each individual in this room doesn't have their own recruiter. I'm not saying it has to be me, it's not about that at all. It's about having someone that you can go to get information on companies which are doing well, information on companies which are doing poorly, salaries, market rates, what technology should I learn next. It's all about that, because a good recruiter, if he hasn't got that information, he'll go and get that information for you. And therefore, one of the things which I'm passionate about is, if you want to call it, recycling my candidates. The record I've got is 7 jobs in 15 years, and 5 of those were permanent for one individual. Why? He keeps coming back to me, asking me those questions. So it's important that you have someone that you can actually rely on, someone who can provide help, because it is your career, it is putting the food on the table. I'm also conscious of the time. It's important to understand the challenges we have today. The recruiter can only help you get to a certain point, right? The idea is, if your level is over here in terms of being marketable, you want to get it, thank you, you want to get it a little bit higher so you have a better chance of getting a job, okay? And that I think is the role of a recruiter, to help the people get to the next level where they're going to secure some work. I've actually allowed a fair bit of time, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are not working who may have some very specific questions. I'm happy to take the questions as of now, but I will stay back for people who might like to have some questions one-on-one. All right? Questions, guys? Yes? Good question. I think it's terrific. Last year I made 3 or 4 placements as a result of Facebook. And you might find that quite funny. Again, it becomes, the recruiter gets close to the candidates, where you can have what I call a business relationship. And sometimes that can extend to social media, WhatsApp and Facebook are the ones I use the most. And the purpose, and the way I did that is by chatting. I go on Facebook for 20 minutes a night. I will chat to somebody, and then I'll say, oh, by the way, I just picked up a role which you may be suitable for. Now, it's not to say I'm not going to speak to that person the next day when I look at the database, but it's fresh in my mind, and I think it is very, very powerful. So I'd be encouraging a lot of people to look at that. The biggest concern I have is for some of the jobs which I see, and I know they're not real. And that frustrates everybody, and people will actually have a poor feeling about those recruiters or recruiting firms. But yeah, I'm a great fan. Look, we can't knock back technology, it's here. So the way I see it is, embrace it. Embrace it in the profession that you're in. Embrace it in my profession. It is working. Next. Look, the way I see it is, if I'm a believer that if I put an ad on and you apply for the job, I will tell you exactly where it is. Not all recruiters will do that. Recruiters will say, send me your resume, okay, and then all of a sudden they've got 50 resumes on their desk, and then they say, I'll get back to you when once I've heard from the client. I don't believe in that. I believe in trust, and if anyone goes behind my back to that company and I miss out on it, I won't deal with them again. I'll burn it. Simple as that. But absolutely demand that you know where your resume is going. In particular, a lot of you probably work in large organisations where they have preferred suppliers. There might be, say, 3 preferred suppliers. If they don't tell you where your resume is going, the last thing you want is your resume to land on the same manager's desk from 2 different organisations. And what does the manager do? He says, oh, from company A, this one's from company B. I don't want a bun fight between the recruiters. I'll put him aside because I've got choices. So be very specific. If the recruiter doesn't want to tell you where the job is, be upfront. Look, I'm on the market. I'm looking around. It doesn't matter whether you work or not, but you're looking around. I need to know because I don't want to double up. Very important.
Is there any, like a lot of recruiters seem to me more helping the employer rather than someone looking.
Oh.
Is there a certain type of recruiter that you can go to more to get advice about your next career move rather than just looking for what's available now?
Look, I think that in today's climate with the fewer jobs, I tend to spend more time. We've only got so many hours in a day, but I do tend to spend more time with the candidates now and get an understanding of who they are, what they're looking for, because I haven't got as many jobs to fill as I do in busy times. But I think it's important that you can sit down with the recruiter, and the recruiter understands who you are. And I would rather deal with fewer people and have more quality time with them and understand them than a large number of people and I really don't know them. So, yeah, you've got to pick your recruiter. You want to sit down with that person and get them to understand your needs.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it seems very hard to get that time.
Look, it does vary from recruiter to recruiter. Some people are prepared to spend the time. Others are, in all fairness to them, they're probably running around trying to pick up new business. And it is hard today. So it's a balancing act. I went through this in 2008 during the GFC, where, again, I didn't have so many jobs to work on. And I spent more time, so I was able to elevate the level of the candidates from A to B. And as a result of that, it helped them get a job. I didn't get them the job. I didn't get every one of those jobs. I'm not going to say it by any stretch of the imagination. But if I made them a better candidate, I certainly found out about it later on.
What is your criteria to become a personal recruiter?
To become a personal recruiter? Okay. The most important, how shall I put this? The most important attribute, in my opinion, of a recruiter is listening skills. And the reason I say that is because there's 2 people we need to listen to. One is the client, to get a fairly clear understanding of what that client wants in the resource that they're looking for. The second one, in terms of listening skills, is to understand the candidate, what they're looking for. And not to say, well, just give me any job because I've been out of work for 3 months and I'm looking for a job. Be a bit more specific so you can actually address their needs. Now, I've told candidates, in particular for people who've come from overseas, with an expectation that within 3 to 6 months they're going to find a job, and next thing they know, 6 or 9 months down the track, they're no better off. I actually suggest to them, listen, get a job outside your bread and butter IT, right? That does not stop you from continuing to look for the right job. And as soon as you do pick up the right job, you can just leave 7-Eleven or whatever you've been doing. The problem we're having today is that a lot of people are losing belief within themselves. And they're doing that because they're saying, gee, I've been in the game for so many years, I've never had a problem picking up work, all of a sudden I do. Is it me? Have I aged? All this kind of stuff. The reality is, it's not about that. And it's not about your resume, most likely, and it's not about your interviewing. It's just that the jobs are just not out there. So people need to accept that. And because otherwise they're going to get depressed and demoralised, you're going to have fights at home, and all the rest of it, you can picture what happens. So it's a matter of understanding that it's not about you at times. I don't have a magic wand the way to say, right, I can now create a job.
One question regarding the overseas candidates we just recently know.
Yes.
So is it a myth or is it a fact that local recruiters, employers look for the local experience? Is that right or?
The answer is some do. Some would prefer local experience, and which obviously disadvantages the people who come from overseas. But at the end of the day, I feel that if you get close to a recruiter, and that recruiter understands who you are and can basically market or sell you to a client, you will have a much better chance of getting the role than if yours is one of 50 resumes sitting there. And then I can say, look, brilliant skills from India, wherever, okay? However, no Australian work experience. Go and have a cup of coffee with this guy. And that's up to the recruiter to have the relationship with the client. Now, if there's no relationship, that's very difficult to do, I can tell you that. But that's sort of the way you do it. We're checking the time here. Yes, I am on LinkedIn, and I'm a great believer in LinkedIn. Just recently, I had a client, potential client, who was going to look for a lot of testers in regard to perhaps building a testing practice here in Melbourne. And I wanted some fresh blood. I was actually away on holidays, and I thought, all right, I'll just jump on the iPad and I will reach into LinkedIn and contact some people. Now, some of the people are smart enough to say, I'm looking, or something to that degree. So I approached those people, sent them a short email telling them who I am, and I'm expecting roles to come up. Wasn't lying, expecting roles to come up. If you're interested, here's my mobile, come and contact me. I had a whole heap of people who did that. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool. In fact, LinkedIn is actually, as good as it is, it's one of our enemies. Because a lot of hiring managers will go to LinkedIn rather than coming to recruiters. The disadvantage of that is they don't really know that person. Right? They will see the skills and they think, oh yes, you've got skills A, B and C, that's great, but quite often there's a culture fit which may not be there. I think so, absolutely, because I look at LinkedIn, if I go through the order when I get a job, first thing I'll probably do is look at the database or think about who I know. From the database I will network, I will then look on LinkedIn, and the last I will advertise. And advertising today is not fun. You know, you get responses 24/7. You know, I had an ad on a couple of weeks ago. I left it on for about 4 hours because I was bombarded. So it's just, I prefer not to do that. Any other questions?
What are the skills that are most requested at the moment for those who are looking for certification or thinking how to put something special in the CV? So kind of skills are most requested now. For example, certification in Agile or these kind of things. So in terms of how to progress, training that you recommend, or... So
basically how to develop your career?
Yes, what would you recommend?
A recruiter should be able to help you with that. Again, like I said, you get to know a recruiter, and then that person should be able to give you some kind of guide based on him or her being on the phone for most of the day to understand where the market's at and is it in line with what you want to do. And if you're, I remember when .NET came about, one of my clients was a Microsoft partner, Praxis, going back to the late 1990s. And they told me, if you can get some .NET people, this is going to be great because that's the emerging technology. So I was able to guide people who didn't have it, but were good developers and wanted to stay developers, to go and get that kind of training. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Any comments? If you disagree with what I said or you want to challenge me, you're welcome to.
If somebody has a huge number of job changes and if he has good skills for your requirement, how do they do it?
If you've got
if you have two different resumes, one is having not so much matching requirements and another is having matching requirements, matching skill set, but he has a lot of job changes.
you're saying that there's a lot of jobs that have jumped around from job to job?
So is that a disadvantage?
Well, if it's permanent jobs that they're jumping around to, it is a disadvantage. But if they're contracting, quite often the contracts will be 3 months. I've got a resume sitting on my desk at the moment, and last 4 years, the longest the guy's had on the resume is a 5 months contract. So there's been a whole heap, and he hasn't been out of work. So that's not a disadvantage, because it's a contract, he goes and does the job and moves on. If you've been in a permanent job, and you've been leaving it for whatever reasons, then it's up to the recruiter to understand why that has occurred. All right? And then he has to sell that reason to the client. Because if it's all valid reasons, then the client's got to be understanding if he accepts the reasons.
Not so much a question, but more of a comment.
Yeah.
I wish we had more of the recruiter like you in the market. Throughout my experience is with a lot of inexperienced recruiters, and they are more of like looking for a job for themselves. They move from job to job. I think that with them is linking. I see them changing position all the time. It's a good suggestion that you say to build relationship with them, but it's very difficult because they are changing job. They are looking for people with dollar sign on their head, more for commission, rather than like yourself, more genuine, dealing the candidate as a person rather than commodity.
Okay, I'll answer that. I'm answering from the perspective that you're looking at a bloke who's had 2 recruitment jobs in 25 years. It means my 21st was a fair while ago. The way I see it is, when I left my first company, and that was TriStar, which is now Robert Walters, I left it and moved to another company, Roche, and when I left, what I had was relationships. I had relationships with both clients and with candidates / contractors. So they came with me. I would inform them. And it really comes down, like I was saying before, relationship. I've got 0 minutes left. Okay. That it's about the relationship. So if a recruiter does move from one to another, remember, they're sales guys, and a lot of salespeople do move around, whether they're real estate agents, car salesmen, it doesn't matter. They do move around after a short period of time. What's important, if you like one, relate to that one.
But what I'm trying to say is, it seems like they're looking for a job for themselves. They move from HR to recruiting, then to advisory or management consultant.
But isn't that the same as growth in the IT industry?
Yeah, but meaning they are not stick to the recruiting profession. Yeah, unlike you know, you put your heart into
Maybe I'm just a sucker, I don't know.
They probably themselves are looking for a job.
Look, it's the same in any industry. You know, people will move on. I changed after 15 years. I won't go into the story because I've got any time, but I changed after 15 years. And people will change careers, right? And you're going to find people perhaps in this room who may be looking around for work right now and have had enough of it. And therefore they're going to go from IT to something else. And that's exactly what the recruiters will do too. Anyone, one more question I'll take.
I give just a comment, because Stephen might have to go. He placed me in 5 different places. None of them were successful. I
think I'll leave now.
But you know, the TriStar, he said, I originally started TriStar, and because of my relationship with him, he developed me, and I never had to go back to him, and that's why he has forgotten. But he did build me up, and he did give me a very good skill development and advices. So I want to rebuild my relationship.
So you can be thankful. Thank you, Tom. I didn't even pay him to say it.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for very short moments.
Thank you.
And there was an eye-opening for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other people in the room. Like, what was the most amazing for me to hear is that you guys are avoiding to put an end in This is really scary for me as a prospective recruiter, you know what I mean? It looks like the recruiters would do anything but not advertise the job. How scary is that? And thank you for the offer to be a personal recruiter. I'm sure a lot of people in the room will take it up. Thank you for the offer to stay one-on-one. I'm sure we'll have a long queue and get home at midnight. You'll be ready.
As long as dinner and drinks are coming, that's fine. Thank you. Thanks for having me.